So are you all ready, Cyndi? That was a big
I
sigh. I love it. So let's go to air.
I'm ready.
Oh, me too. Three, two, one.
Action. Welcome to SOWTI, the coming together of Shine On with Ruth Coghill's ministry, Words to Inspire. And we are so excited to be here with you today and to share some little tidbits and unpack God's word. You know, Ruth, I have something to share today. And I have to be honest, through this COVID period, there's been periods in which I have felt a sense of grieving of what was going to happen, what was supposed to happen in my life, the things I had on the schedule that were taken off,
Mm-hmm.
not being able to physically see people and touch them and hug them, going to a store where even if you see somebody, you know, people are hesitant to speak to each other and everybody has to stand far apart. It feels like this is a world that's opposite to what God has created us to be. And in my heart, I think there's been a little bit of grieving about that. Have you had any of those feelings?
Oh, I have definitely had grieving. I've had grieving, of course, there's lots going on in our neighborhood with the nursing home losing almost half its residents and grieving for those healthcare workers. It is a time to grieve right now, and we should not apologize for that. And we need to work through it. But at the same time, we need to take time to grieve with those who are grieving, and we're all grieving. I'm also grieving at the idea that Jesus is coming for his bride, and is my heart pure? I'm grieving over some of the things that maybe I haven't done that I should have done. And I'm not talking about self-condemnation. I'm talking about preparing my heart for the wedding day.
Well, I think, but that's true. Grieving is also reflection, isn't it? It's
Yes.
not always, it can be a time of reflection. And I think that's what we're sitting in. At what point does grieving sit on the edge of reflection and just looking at our lives? When I look back at my life and I think of all the times I've grieved when I lost my limbs, it was because I was grieving over my life not being what I thought it was going to be. So the loss of what I
Mm,
thought my life was going to be. And I think that's the same thing with many of us for COVID. We
yes.
grieve the loss of what we thought our lives would be, and they have the imminent feeling that, you know, this is God's plan and his plan could be coming together anytime soon. So are we ready for that too? So we're grieving and we're reflecting and we're preparing. And that's just amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it absolutely is. And during that time of grieving, the losses, it also gives us a time, as you say, to reflect on what is really important. We are so prone to living for today and for all the earthly things, all the possessions we have, all of the education we're gleaning, all of the new ministry that we're acquiring. We're used to living in that realm,
Yes.
right? Both of us had a
Yeah,
good
even
schedule.
something yeah, yeah, we had full schedules, and I find myself even thinking, well, certain things that I haven't been able to get I haven't been able to get or purchase were little luxuries for me. How many luxuries were in my life that I didn't really need?
Yeah,
And so there's so
exactly.
many aspects of this period in time that we can look into our hearts and reflect upon.
Yeah,
So I don't
yes.
think grieving is necessarily a bad thing sometimes. I think sometimes we need to grieve exactly as you were saying, Ruth. We need to grieve that maybe our hearts aren't as pure as they could be. And I'm thinking about myself, particularly right now, how can I make it more like Jesus, less of me, which is
Hmm.
always our Christian goal.
It is, and it's
It's what we're
always our
called to.
challenge. But you know, I'm thinking of the story where Jesus talked about the man that built all those barns to put his grain in, and more and more and more, and then he died. And so we're all going to die, but we don't think about that often enough. We're never going to die eternally. We'll live forever. But it's amazing how a time like this, we stop to think about a little bit more about the eternal. Where am I going to spend eternity? What am I going to do
And
with it?
that's what we're called to do.
Yeah. So it grieving brings us, it stops us in our tracks. And you know, you've lost your dad, I've lost my parents, and we've both had losses. And those losses really do stop us in our tracks and help us to reset our new normal. So grieving to reset. What is our new normal going to be? Do you have any ideas, Cyndi?
I just love that we're calling this the reset because our family's been calling it too. And what a great opportunity we all have to reset, to
Yes.
revisit God's word and to say, you know, Christ lives in me and I live in him. And where have I been living outside of the Spirit? And where have I
Mm,
been stepping outside of it? This is our opportunity to turn grieving into a reset.
yeah. I remember very distinctly when my mom died very, very suddenly when our little girl was 3 months old. And it shook me to the core. And I remember after going through that process, which took a long time, of coming to the place where I thought, I do not care what anybody thinks of me. I'm going to hug everybody I love when I see them, because I felt it's kind of a silly little thing, but it did reset something in me, that I lost that feeling. Well, you may not like it, but I need to do this because I might not see you again. And it kind of came out of that grieving place, which for me has been a beautiful, beautiful new reset in my life. It's been a long time, but I will
And
continue on that.
that's the beauty.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the beauty is grieving is doesn't have to be a dark place. It can be a place that leads us to reset.
Oh, Cindy,
Refocus. Refocus.
grieving during this time, there is a time to laugh, there's a time to cry, there's a time to mourn, there's a time to dance. And let's take time as we feel these grieving thoughts to grieve, not to stay there, but to take the time to do what grieving is supposed to do. And weeping may endure for
Which will allow, yeah,
joy comes in the morning.
yeah.